Mr Chair, with the greatest respect to Mr Robertson, his arguments are as always a mile wide and an inch deep. Actually doesn't do any work, and so he criticises the government for not working in New Zealand, still has not actually got off his chuff and read the business growth agenda at all, which could never be described as a Labor Party-like glossy document, because it's actually written in font that is too small for Grant to be able to read it, and that's the challenge for him, Mr Chair. He has not done any work, and his party has not done any work over the last 5 years, and now they're turning up with some platitudes. The platitudes, we will have a full employment plan. Well, Mr Speaker, let's go back a little bit. Just at the beginning of the GFC, their numbers were already worse than the numbers that we've got now as the recovery continues, Mr Chair. And he brings up Dunedin. Well, with the greatest respect, Dunedin's unemployment rate currently, the Otago unemployment rate is 4.6%. 4.6%. This apparently is a disaster. It's a disaster according to Mr Robertson. Well, he should go down there. Actually, he should actually go back to where he came from. And I think the last time we went back there, he tried to run a student protest when I was there, and he was heard to lament that actually the students didn't turn up. The students didn't turn up. The world had moved on since Grant was there. Well, tell me, Mr Robertson, the world has moved on in your view of economics. And actually, the world has moved on to understand that actually things do change over time. And in the case of Otago University and Otago Research, the good news is that there's a lot more money going in. The Health Research Council has just given them, I think, the biggest amount of research money that they've ever had in 1 year. We've introduced 2 new centres of research excellence in Dunedin, and there's lots of additional investment going in to that region. And the difficulty I've got with Mr Robertson's approach is that, in fact, the whole Labor Party's approach is that their view is that nothing should change. It is completely what you could only describe as a preservational economics, which is nothing should ever change. No matter whether the world has changed and things need to be done, nothing should change. And they've actually taken it even further, Mr Chair. They've gone to the resuscitation economics when they now propose as their big economic proposal is to bring back the mob, which I think, stands a lot of, I think is at least innovative, which is more than we can say for the last 6 years of Labor Party policy. At least has the merit of being something that's new and not being tired rhetoric. But I hate to refer to that particular example too much, Mr Chair, because I think I need to point out to the member who raised it that Jurassic Park was a movie, not a documentary. It was a movie and not a documentary. So sadly, for the member's idea, I think it falls apart about there. Nevertheless, at least he should be rewarded for coming up with, and I imagine he'll get a promotion back to the front bench on the strength of the Moa resuscitation plan, but maybe it's something that he'll have to wait for until after a certain election event coming up. The other thing that Mr Robertson raised was the performance for young Māori in Pacifica, and I personally believe that this government has a lot to be proud of in terms of improving the training outcomes and study outcomes of young Māori in Pacifica. Because today, between 3,000 and 4,000 more young Māori people a year are studying at university than when these guys in 2007, and 3,000 or 4,000 more young Pacifica. And their completion rates are improving dramatically, not there yet, but improving dramatically from where they were when this lot disgracefully left them when they left out of office. And also we have many more initiatives like the Youth Guarantee, like the Māori and Pacifica Trades Training Initiatives, like the Trades Academies, which are lifting the skill levels of young people of all ethnicities and ensuring they have the opportunity to participate in this recovery, which, by the way, has generated 84,000 more jobs in the last 12 months. 84,000 more jobs. And what's going on there, Mr Chair? Because the other thing is Mr Robertson was talking about somehow that the roading projects announced on the weekend constituted the whole economic development strategy or regional development strategy of the government. Well, it's one of those things where you create a straw person and then you knock it over, which in Mr Robertson's case is something he does all too regularly, Mr Chair. He does it all too regularly, and yet it's all rubbish. Actually, this government has a comprehensive economic development strategy, and I went through some of it in the House this afternoon, and the limitations of time stopped me going through all the rest of it. I'm happy to add a little bit more for members at the moment because it is really important. And our strategy is around providing the opportunities for New Zealand companies to be more competitive wherever they are, in whichever region. Different regions need different things, and this government is working with every region, Mr Chair, and is well received by the local councils, including in Gisborne, where, with the greatest respect to Mr Robertson, if he wants to make a case that that Motu Bridge should stay that way forever, then I invite him to go to Gisborne and say that, because actually nobody believes that. It's a one-lane bridge. It's a one-lane bridge. I'd never see him again. That'd be the reality. So anyway, a whole range of things. In the innovation space, primary growth partnerships, R&D funding through Callaghan Innovation, miles more than was ever done under the Labor Party, and now they're saying, "Oh no, we'll have an innovation page. It's part of our economic upgrade." Well, first they have to explain why they didn't do very much at all the time they were in government, and they also have to explain that the only policy they've announced in the last 6 years is for 9 separate times their R&D tax credits, which have been well overtaken by time. They need something new. Also, Mr Speaker, in the skills space, they're going to do all these things about skills, but so far the only thing they've said in that space, is they're going to bring back some of the adult community and education funding that was withdrawn in 2010, which was the stuff that could be described as hobby courses. So that's the big innovation for the Labor Party, is they're going to bring back the hobby courses. Good on them. So that's the skills space, Mr Speaker. And meanwhile, we're doing the Youth Guarantee, the New Zealand apprenticeships, the Māori and Pacifica Trades Training, the Trades Academies, all these innovations across, working with the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs and all these things, and the Labor Party is stuck in 2008, once again not having done the work. But it's worse than that, Mr Chair. It's worse than that, because they say, we will get alongside the regions. Well, explain to me, New Zealand Labor Party and your mates in the Greens, how a carbon price at 5 times the world price would constitute ever getting alongside New Zealand's regions. And I hope you promote that strongly, both of you in the election campaign. I know Labor have been very quiet so far, neither confirm nor deny, but the Greens Party's policy is that, and Labor has not backed away from it. Labor has not come out and said, we will not support that, and the regions are noticing. The second one, a capital gains tax on every productive business and farm in this country, Mr Speaker, supported by both of those parties, and they say it's all about discouraging investment in property and encouraging investment in businesses. Well, Mr Chair, how do they explain the fact that it's a tax on 100% of businesses and only about 1/3 of housing? How does that work, Mr Chair? That simple explanation. So that's a second one that the regions will be looking at and going, I don't think so. And then there's a small matter of trade, which of course is hugely important to our export-focused regions, and one of the reasons they're doing well at the moment. Well, in the trade space, the Labor Party, we're not sure about TPP, don't know whether we'll do that. Greens flat out against. And the regions notice that too, Mr Chair. And then there's a small matter of the dairy industry and oil and gas. They're not the whole story of our regions, but they're significant in some regions, Mr Chair. So let's have a look at it. Anti-irrigation and water storage, anti-dairy, in fact, anti-oil and gas, and anti-any form of international investment. Apart from that, really in favour of the regions. So apart from the capital gains tax, the carbon price, the windblown timber on the west coast, the rolling back the RMA reforms, trade, investment, oil and gas. I think that's everything. There might be more. But apart from all of those things, Mr Chair, they are well behind the regions. They're all supporting the regions, apart from all of those reasonably crucial things that most of regional New Zealand is noticing, Mr Chair. And this government, here's the good news, isn't going to do any of those. Oh, there's another one. The high water resource levies that are being promoted by the Greens and the Labor Party. Also not on the policy list for this government, Mr Chair. This government, 350 separate initiatives in innovation, in skills, in opening up markets for our exporters, in providing capital, And yes, in infrastructure, very, very important, Mr Chair. That's an economic development policy.
Called Jonathan Young.
Thank you, sir. Sir, as we look at the economic development estimate for this government, I think we can be very encouraged to see a very proactive plan that's going to make a huge